Welcome to the SaaS Playbook. Today, I'm joined by Mayuri Joshi, co-founder and chief product officer at Curiouser.ai. Mayuri has spent her career across engineering, consulting, and data science, and is now focused on helping businesses think more clearly before they scale. Mayuri, welcome to the show.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Love it. Can't wait to dive a bit deeper with you. Just prior to even Curiosa, you've worked across engineering, management consulting, and data science. How did moving between those worlds shape the way you now think about building products for real businesses?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it's a question that I asked myself before I went down that path, right? So I'm glad that I'm on the other side now, being able to answer in a positive way, because that was a bet I took when I was, let's say, I was around 2021. I was about to graduate from engineering college. I had two really, really good offers to be like an embedded systems programmer. And I had spent some time already working with one of those companies. And I had a choice between that and switching into business strategy. And at that time, given my experience with through engineering college, but also the company that I'd worked with briefly, I realized that, what I really am good at is bringing a lot of things together, like, integration, seeing the big picture, while I was good at engineering as well. So I felt like, okay, I've checked this box, but to be able to see the whole picture so that we can really solve real problems and not just like in a silo or like the narrow task that's given to you. I really need experience, a breadth of experience across a lot of different domains. And that's started like a whole journey over the last, 18 years, 19 years of me going around through different career choices. So that's how I got my MBA, embarked on the management consulting paths, work with so many Fortune 500 companies, solving their business strategy, integration, many transformation issues and projects. And then from there also, at the same time was doing work around data science and analytics. One of my first roles around that was with BBDO at Omnicom Group. And so all of that was it was a part of the strategy that I'd kind of started going down the path when I was around 20 of I want to do a little bit of everything, enough to know how everything comes together, so that now I'm at a position where things are moving really fast. There's so much like innovation and advancement, and that kind of perspective like really allows me to bring a combination of business strategy and technology as we develop, at Curiouser AI. And that's something, frankly, is what I think is kind of missing in the last 2-3 years of progress that we've made. And we've made so much progress as an economy, as a country, the world. But some of it, I think, is very much like we're doing it to do it, right? A lot of it is not like actually solving real problems. And I think that comes from people that have a siloed, narrow focus, that are using the technology to solve what they're good at, or people in technology or, engineers that are building really sophisticated tools for problems that may not even exist, right? And so it's become more like technology looking for a problem than a problem looking for technology. And so I think that has really been the benefit of this journey, kind of meandering, but still pretty like, focused, that I've had over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, I think because you've had such a decorated background, it allows for you to be in a position where you can almost do two roles at the same time. Often when I speak to a lot of people, they either have co-founders who are really good at product and technical and builds, and then we have a founder or a co-founder who's more business orientated. Whereas I feel like you've landed perfectly in the middle somewhere, that you have enough experience on both. You can obviously deliver that confidently to your clients, which is a really unique thing to have, considering it's quite a rare journey. I think you just sound like you someone that needs to learn something new all the time.
That's when, we were embarking on this Gen AI phase as world, as, global economy, like 3 years ago. I was like, I want to find my way there, because I'm like, there's no way there's something new out there that I am not in the middle of. Like, that's just, you're totally right. Jenny, but the thing is, it's not just about delivering to the client that is the benefit. I think the benefit is perspective and getting along with people. I mean, a lot of businesses often fail because co-founders don't get along. Whether it's a small business or a big business, like communication, I mean, I just read a statistic, communication issues are costing US businesses $1.2 trillion a year. Yeah. And so like these are like kind of statistics that, I mean, I'm sure they apply worldwide. And a lot of that is because people have a mindset that, they've trained in, right? Like, you're like technical. So your mindset is a certain way. And then when you're business, you have like a more like, it's more flexible. You're, outward looking. Some of it is inward looking. And that causes people to not actually see where the other person is coming from. And I think that is actually the soft side of what I think I can also bring to the table, because I always have the perspective of like, okay, well, not always, but I try to have the perspective of like, this is where this team must be coming from, this client must be coming from, and I can put myself in a lot of people's shoes, and so I can do a lot of like problem solving. So that is, I think, a hidden benefit. It's not just about like I can, give the right answers, whether they're technical or business. It's more like I can help people get along, and even if they come from like completely different backgrounds, and that helps us have a very productive working environment.
Not only that, but it's a lot in terms of staff turnover, right? If you have someone to translate things between one founder to another, I found even that then filters out to your staff and delivery team where they're not turning around so quickly. But it's nice that there are, well, you wouldn't know the hidden benefits unless you're sitting in the seat, right? So I'm glad you share that insight. People who would be listening to this podcast wouldn't even know that. So I appreciate that. So when you joined Curiosa.ai, what was the gap you felt strongly needed to be addressed for small and medium-sized teams?
Like one, you don't know what you don't know. It's somewhat connected to the previous answer, right? Like a lot of these people that, have, great ideas and talent and they want to start a business. The first issue is like, you don't know what you don't know. So you don't even know where to look, right? Where do you look? What are the questions to even ask to be able to solve, this problem of like being able to build and grow your business? And that's like the biggest gap, because they're not going to find you and you're not going to find them. And it's a gap that we are continuing to figure out how to solve for. And then the other gaps are things like founders generally are good at a few things, and now they need to build a team. They need to figure out how to like, start small and then scale. Skill sets that, come with having a big team, but they don't have that, right? So it's how do you empower them with all of that information that they can have? And that becomes really a lot easier now, because you have tools like all the different AI tools, including our tool, which is specifically focused on solving that problem that people didn't have before. So you kind of had to like fail till you succeed. And we believe that we're in an era that failure, which is always often inevitable, like we can really like improve the failure rates and, improve towards success rates because of the technology that is now available to them that allows them to have like that information, someone giving them that kind of guidance that they would not have had otherwise for a much lower cost, right? Because the big companies, they have the McKinseys, BCGs, Bains, they will hire them to solve their problems. The small businesses don't have that. So yeah, I would say like they don't know what they don't know. And even if they did, they don't have the right teams or the resources or the funds to be able to execute on it. And then the third one, which probably could be the first, is like many of them actually have a vague idea, but often, like you feel the pull, like, okay, I know there's something here, but they can't really like fully articulate what, like, what is their story? How is that connected to their purpose? And without being able to do that, like the visibility, because you need to be able to do that and be out there and be visible, that's not there, right? So there's like so many, these, I would say, the three gaps that I saw. There are others that are like connected to that, but these are the ones that made me very passionate about small businesses and entrepreneurs.
Especially coming from working with so closely with Fortune 500 companies, you would have, maybe we should help the small guys. I think that's where it's probably a derivative of that experience in some shape or form. And I think it's really beautiful because people, especially when they GTM or they're creating a new product or a new tool in the market, they're sort of trying to aim straight to the enterprises or the Fortune 500s. And it's not impenetrable, but it's trickier in order to actually implement such a tool at such a rate. I think obviously most people build small, get funding, build bigger, scale, typically within the SaaS space. So it's interesting that I think with Curiouser's focus to service small to medium, I think being able to have that direct messaging and have that clear and concise dialogue, it obviously speaks to a lot of people because there's probably, I would say from the top of my head, at least 64% of the market that's in that realm, if not more. So I think that a lot of people will drive value from that, knowing that that's what Curiosa is specifically built for. I personally would appreciate it. So Curiosa isn't just positioned as an AI tool. How do you approach building a product that actually sharpens thinking rather than replacing thinking?
Yeah, yeah. And that part of it was like initially my co-founder like and CEO Stephen Klein, like he's really passionate about this idea of questioning and Socratic reasoning that started out as the foundation and then has, expanded to a bunch of different frameworks and ways of looking at it. But at the core, the idea it's this idea of like, you have a choice. You bring the horse to the river that's saying to drink versus you actually teach the horse, like which of those is like the better way. And the truth is that that's the problem that we are having with so much of AI, right? Information has been out there in the world. It's not like the information hasn't existed. Of course, it's been difficult to access it at the rate that AI can give you access to it, and sometimes and often wrong. Still, that's different, but information has been out there. What really has been the gap is people's understanding of it and how do you like scale from there. And that is something that you kind of have to learn. Like there's no way around it, right? Like there's no way to like things can look smart, but if you haven't like lived the experience or you haven't really thought about it, it's not going to go anywhere from there. That it's gonna, you're gonna have that information and not be able to do much with it. And so our approach truly is getting people to take a step back like you would if you were in a coaching environment, like a human coach environment, where the answers would not be just given to you. It'd be a lot of like, trying to understand your purpose, why are you trying to do this? Because often the root cause of what you say the problem is not what you're trying to solve for. Like when people open like any of these, AI apps and you're asking a question, that's not often like you're actually trying to solve a different problem than what you think you're trying to solve for, right? And so this is what we're trying to solve for. It's not like, hey, we're not that app you open and you ask the question, because we will say, before we answer that question, let's go on this journey to get to know who you are. Like what are your values and and all of that, so that we can work on this together and get to a point where we're trying to solve the real problem you're trying to solve for. So it's like through building relationship. The approach is building the relationship, gathering information through like this conversation of, the user, their values, their background, even their personality, and then like a back and forth Socratic questioning methodology to get to the root cause and solve the real problem that is at hand.
I see the gap that Curiosa is plugging is actually connecting humans closer to AI and understanding, and more so the context from the conversation is the context almost matters more than what you're asking, and actually allowing the human to think a little bit more rather than just asking a question and expecting an answer. In this day, with the level of innovation within this space, it's almost like it has to come to a point where humans are going to have to reverse or overcorrect at some point. Curiosa is actually taking a step forward and actually correcting that gap between humans and technology. So that's really awesome to see. And that's sort of one of the key reasons why I wanted to reach out and have you on the podcast, because I'm like, hang on, how does this work? And what is the intention? And, what's the philosophy behind that? And what you just mentioned now, it stands out, and it's the same dialogue that I see across the channels, but it's the same dialogue coming from the founders. So it's really nice to see. It's really refreshing, Mayuri.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny.
Since launching, you've seen strong adoption and conversion. What patterns have surprised you most in how users engage with the product?
Yeah, so when we launched it, while we said it's for small businesses, we kept it kind of broad. The users that are actually using our product heavily, it's validating our use case, because they're mostly like small consulting firms, companies that are looking to find their voice, that are looking for advice on how to strengthen their sales. strategy and communication strategy, their thought leadership. A lot of it is focused on thought leadership. So on one hand, so your answer was what surprised us. Like on one hand, it didn't necessarily surprise us, but we were very validated to see that we had consulting companies that were actually trying to help others come to us on like how they can do that. Like to be like, we want to build our own pipeline, and Curiouser as a tool, how can Curiouser as a tool help with that? So I think that was more validating than I would say a surprise, but we were surprised by how many like people were doing that. Like, I guess that would be the surprise. Like the sheer number of people that are looking for that kind of support, that's definitely been a surprise. And it has been a motivator. Because when we launched it like that, we kind of had this hypothesis. We see the facts, 64%. Actually, our facts say it's way even higher than the percentage that you mentioned, right, of the small businesses. So we had this hypothesis, but when to see the sheer magnitude of how many people are out there that are looking for purpose and guidance on, what to do next, they want to get out of the rat race. They want to do something meaningful. We were really surprised by the magnitude of that population.
Yeah. I'm curious to know what that number is just from a curiosity standpoint. But I think touching or adding to that, when people go into business, they're very good at one particular silo. Dentists are really good at being dentists. Chefs are really good at being chefs. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're good at other silos when running a business. And I think Curiouser helps along with that. Dentists, they're not really going to understand sales processes, for example, or strategy or retention. User-friendly perspective, it does eventually help them get at least through that next phase without having to externally get strategy or strategists, especially if we're leaning towards the smaller business side. And I think that might be an avenue that people can look into a little bit deeper, because when I sort of think about some of the smaller clients that I have, they use ChatGPT almost for everything, whatever LLM they use. But they're like, well, I need you to essentially be the co-founder and figure this part out for me because I don't know that part, right? And I'm just focused on craft and my delivery. So I'm interested to see what that actually looks like and how much uptake there is in terms of businesses adopting different silos through Curiouser.ai.
Yeah.
So as you look forward to the next phase of growth, what feels like the hardest problem to solve and why?
On one hand, we have, our community on LinkedIn is growing really fast. We have over 70,000 followers in our community. And so there's been a lot of positive traction. But on the other hand, for us to be able to reach such a large, market that we're talking about, a lot of that is going to be organic, because, the distribution is the hardest channel for small businesses, right? For enterprises, you have enterprise accounts. There are only X number of big Fortune 500 enterprises, right? So you kind of have which is what you're saying, which is why VCs and, tend to favor the Fortune 500 companies or enterprise products targeted towards them, because the distribution channel can be complicated when you're trying to reach all these small businesses, like the dentist, right? That you said, or, some of these people that are I have this great consulting product that I want to, or service I want to provide. So that distribution is difficult, and we're trying to address that through, right now, mainly social media is our biggest channel that we succeed on. So yeah, I think the biggest channel would be awareness through the appropriate distribution channels.
Is that 70,000? Let's just use LinkedIn as an example. 70,000 followers obviously have seen the vision, have seen what Curiouser is capable of. If you can share, how many of that were sort of in the initial sign-up phase, ready for it to be rolled out?
We had a wait list that for a short period, we don't have one anymore. And we had 5,000 people on the wait list in the first few short months that we launched it. So a lot of those people now, it's not clear did they go on the waitlist and then join LinkedIn, or did they join the waitlist through LinkedIn? Probably got onto LinkedIn and then through that signed a waitlist. So we do see a good conversion rate of people that go into our community and then sign our waitlist and try a product. And in fact, our product conversion rate from people who actually tried the product, which is nearing 1,000 now, to people that actually decide to pay a subscription is like over 60%. And so we have, which is a really large conversion rate. So like people really do feel like, there is some value at least to this, and there's obviously a lot of more improvement that we're working on as we speak. But yes, the conversion rate from the people in our LinkedIn community to people that either join our waitlist, try, convert to the product is pretty high. Yeah, it's pretty high. What we are hoping for is one, obviously expanding that awareness beyond that, and then keeping the conversion rate and the retention rate going, right? Because a lot of this is like the product has to continue to catch up and lead where in this environment, right? Like we need to stay relevant and really deliver on the value and help these businesses. So I think that is something that we're going to have to continue keep doing so that, we can keep expanding our network and our reach.
That's a very high conversion rate, especially from obviously seed to delivery. It gives you good indicators or at least evidence that we're on the right track and people do need something like this in the market. One last question for you, Mayuri, before we close up the podcast. For founders building in AI right now, what's one assumption you think people should slow down and question before scaling?
Like, what problem are you solving? And is this a problem that needs to be solved? Like, really? That's the one question.
It's so simple. I love it. And is there already a tool on the market that already does that?
That already does that. And is that tool, that doesn't have to be an AI tool. Like sometimes the problem you're solving could be better solved without AI, right? And I think that's where we're just getting, that's the part we're just getting all the way backwards is that like just because we have this shiny tool, it doesn't always mean it's the right fit, right? So you kind of have to really, really figure out like what is the problem you're trying to solve for and get to the root cause of that problem and then solve. And sometimes it's the nuance is that like what is the downstream impact of solving that problem, right? Because there are like you could eliminate, like, you can give AI without, regulating it or controlling it to kids in school. But what is the downstream impact of that, right? What is the downstream impact of the tools that you are creating? Like if the even if it's solving a problem, if it's not a problem that actually, which it kind of just solves this and punts the problem off to other parts of the value chain. And now there are new problems that popped up downstream because you did this here and you inserted this in the process here. You kind of made money off of it, but you really didn't actually help anybody, right? And so that's what's happening. And I think that's the like, is this if you're doing it for the right reasons, if you're in a company in it with the right intention, you'd truly be like, okay, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? Does the problem need to actually be solved? And what's the downstream impact of the problem? And is that something that is collectively beneficial for the economy and for the individuals?
I think about downstream, I think of like a domino effect. I'm like, yes, we're fixing this short-term pain, but what is the long-term pain that we're not even aware of yet?
We're not even thinking of. And when you say long-term, I mean, so many of these products are easily like, there's not a lot of what they say moat around a lot of these products. They're quickly replaced. A lot of this technology, like a year from now, becomes outdated because like the big ones, the big players are like, they quickly replicate those technologies. And so there's a lot of that going on. It's like from a user perspective, that's the question I would also ask is like, hey, like, is this something that is sustainable, right? Is this something that I want to use for a long time? And am I making an investment in a technology that might be relevant a year from now?
Mm-hmm. Or is some big enterprise or Fortune 500 just got to copy and paste into their system and then your service or offering might be obsolete, which is scary, right? It's scary for especially new founders or I found a lot of people in the space are build, sell, build, sell, build, sell. And I hope it doesn't go that route because I think much like how you and the other co-founders much prefer long-term partnerships and collaborations, right? And I think getting less and less frequent now.
Yeah.
Because of how innovative and nimble this space is. So it's definitely something to keep on top of mind. Mayuri, this has been an absolute hoot and a half. It's been a genuine, insightful discussion. And I've loved unpacking how your background has shaped the way you think about product growth strategy. And I'm grateful that you shared it with us today.
Thank you, Jenny. And I love the work you're doing. You're doing good work. Keep doing that. Yeah, people really need to hear, like the perspectives from different kind of people in the SaaS space and the AI space. And so you're doing great. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayuri.